So it's that time. We are packing up our seeds from last year's harvest to share with everybody who wants them. When we do our garden, we grow to get seeds, not necessarily to get food. And the result is we get a bunch of food and we become seed rich and have more seeds than I know what to do with. So we just give them away. We share, grow and share. It's kind of our motto. But as I was going through all these seeds in the packages, I couldn't help but to keep thinking of Romans 1:19, and so I just wanted to share it with you. So Romans 1:19, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so they are without excuse. And the way that reads to me is God has programmed his creation to essentially testify of himself. That there's always a benchmark, no matter how crazy man gets, no matter how insane with self-deification man gets, no matter what damage he does, no matter how he interprets this or that, there's this kind of like a partition in a cell phone where there's this clean copy of God's attributes, and it was written in God's creation. God wrote it. He spoke it with his own hand, with his own mouth. He spoke the words into existence, and creation is here, and there's nothing man can do to it. We can't manipulate creation to say something different. And so it's just really neat to me. But as I was going through, I couldn't help but to think about our friend here, the kale seed. It's a red Russian kale seed. Anybody, I'll circle it for you. If anybody has ever dealt with kale, they know it's a very prolific plant. But I was just kind of thinking about the math and how it really illustrates one of the invisible attributes of God, and that attribute is multiplication. So, as an example, if I take this one kale seed and I plant it and it grows and everything survives, I will get, on average, 100,000 kale seeds. Okay? If I take those 100,000 kale seeds and I plant them and they survive, I mean, it's like a 99% germination rate, but if they survive and thrive and go to seed, just for simplicity's sake, we'll just say that they do. In year number 2, I will have 100,000 times 100,000 kale seeds, which would be a 1 and 10 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's that. So let's see here. That is millions, billions. So that's 10 billion kale seeds in 2 years. That's God's creation. It's speaking to an invisible attribute of God. That when he made 2 human beings, we now have billions of human beings. When he made 1 kale seed, we now have 10 billion kale seeds. It's absolutely miraculous. It's amazing. In year number 3, I'm not even going to dare write that number. It's a 1 with 20 zeros behind it, right? So that would be exponential. It'd be 1 to the 20th power. I don't even know if we can speak that. I don't even know if there's a name for that number. It's just crazy, right? But that's what God does. This one little kale seed turns into it turns into enough kale seed. Literally, look at this. There are about 10 billion. No, there's less than 10 billion people on the planet. So that means that I can put a kale seed in every single human's hand. That living today, man, woman, or child, I can put a kale seed in their hand and they could grow a kale plant. That's God's nature. That's what he does. He multiplies, right? So let's take a look at what man does, because this is kingdom of heaven. This is his riches and glory. It's a part of it. But let's see what man does, all right? And so right here, I have a creation of man. And this is a 1945 penny. It is made primarily of copper. Since 1945 to now, the value of this penny has depreciated. And now, our newer pennies, which aren't even really entirely made of copper anymore, it takes 3 of our new pennies to equal 1 of the 1945 pennies. Our money has depreciated in value. If I look at the kale seed, my 1 kale seed has appreciated in value. The return on investment, we don't really have a number for it. My return on investment on this guy right here is literally a depreciated value. Every year that the Fed prints a dollar that you've worked for is worth less. And it happens all the time. It's just absolutely crazy. It's madness. It's madness to me. In fact, if you look at, how our money actually works, how our currency, it's not even money anymore, how our currency actually works. We're literally just printing monopoly money. There's nothing behind it at all except men with guns and just the fact that you and I put faith in that. We put faith in that, and therefore it has value. All right. But I'm starting to realize that this right here, that this seed, that God's attributes are worth more. They're worth more of my trust than this guy right here, right? And then we can take a look at something even cooler about this little kale seed right here. And that is, it is a complete and 100% one-off. There will not ever be another kale seed exactly like that. In random systems, there are duplicates. There are exact copies because it's a random system. It will randomly happen. In God's systems, however, everything is 100% unique. There are no duplicates. It's not random at all. It's just an order we don't understand. Chaos, this type of chaos is basically just order we don't understand. But it's one of a kind. There will never be another kale plant exactly like that. So there's no real way to appraise it because you have to appraise it to like and kind. But there will never be another one like it. And all the information that this little kale seed needs to grow into a kale, it's all right there. We don't know how the information even got there. We don't even know how that information even works. We don't know where it's stored, where it's contained. We have ideas, it's in the genes, it's in this and that, but it's like, how did it get there? We have no idea. But we do know that if we put it in the ground, something will happen and it will form a kale plant, right? And that's all it will be. It'll be another kale plant. But we don't know how that works either. We could do a chemical analysis. We could get all the compounds. We could try to figure out what's inside this thing. And then we could mash it all together into a ball and throw that in the ground, and it still won't grow because something happens to that seed. And in fact, we don't even know if it's alive or dead. Scientifically speaking, it doesn't classify as alive because it doesn't need water. It's not using water and it's not growing. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting there, and we call that dormant. But literally, there are some plants that their seeds have sat for 2,000 years. The Methuselah date. It literally sat in a cave for 2,000 years without water. They put it in a pot and it grew, right? There's ancient watermelons that some guy found in a cave in Arizona in a leather bag. It was over 100 and something years old. They put it in the ground and it grew. We don't know how that works. So really, this thing right here, this little kale seed right here, this was spoken into existence by God. It is a miracle. We have no idea how it works, but we do know that it does work, and when it works like this. It multiplies, and it becomes more and more valuable. With each passing generation, this kale seed has a higher return on investment than this penny ever will, right? But it's a miracle. I think we can just agree that there's no other real way to explain what a seed does is that it's miraculous. But this is really the problem that we have in the world, is this. How much would you pay for that miracle? Would you pay a penny? Would you pay $1? Is it worth that to the kingdom of man? Is this miracle worth anything to the kingdom of man? That one kale seed right there. I can tell you that it is. It does have a value. But that's exactly what the kingdom of man does. Not only does its currency decrease in value every single year, but it also decreases the value of the invaluable, of the things that God made perfect. And it does the same thing with you, with your kids, with everything around you. When man builds a building, it only deteriorates. When man builds a statue, it only starts to fall apart. When man builds anything at all, it's corruptible. But when God builds something, it multiplies, right? Even a human life, man has a value for. I mean, that's right. Like, a young man is trained. They put a rifle in his hand and they send him over to another country to kill other men so that we can get things like this. And then we can sell them for garbage like this. And so that human life, literally, in the kingdom of man has a depreciated value. And so I'm just kind of wondering at this point in time, as I'm packing these seeds up and looking at the abundance of God, why in the world would I trust in this anymore? And really, why should you?